Amanda Waller has dug extra deep for her new Task Force X, and I don't think they're all gonna make it. The whole point of Task Force X is that the members are expendable, and Argus is able to disassociate with their failure and probably untimely demise. For missions that will have this kind of attrition rate, regular C-list heroes won't do. You have to go way further down the alphabet, in the bad guy column. Who's gonna care if a weird villain no one remembers with an odd theme bites the bullet doing something shady? So how deep in the catalog did Waller and director James Gunn go? Let's see. Sol Soria, played by Alice Braga, isn't an official member of the Suicide Squad. She doesn't have a bomb in her spine, she wasn't arrested in the course of supervillainy, in fact, she's not a bad guy at all, unless you're the corrupt dictatorship of Corto Maltese. When the Suicide Squad shows up in her backyard trying to horn in on her game of trying to eliminate the dictator Silvio Luna, she decides that they're not gonna take her job away and she joins in the fray. She doesn't come with powers or fancy doohickeys, instead she understands the land, its people, and most importantly, how to operate while under the watch of an oppressive regime. That makes a pretty good case for her being the one who gets people out alive. Probably not all of them though.
Gracias.
With all the shenanigans going on at the Olympics, it might make sense that a few of those top-notch athletes take their highly trained skills and just give in to supervillainy. I mean, could we even catch Sha'Carri Richardson if we wanted to? In the world of DC Comics, one Olympian did just that, and his name is... who knows, but he goes by Javelin because that was his event. Keep things simple, I always say. Of course, he didn't abide by that for very long. Right out of the gate, he joins a group of mercenaries to take down the guy who can form objects with his mind and power ring, Green Lantern. He has some success, not with javelins, but by stealing an experimental craft before being captured, obviously, and consigned to the Suicide Squad. There, he's had a Loki amount of resurrections. Cersei impaled him with his own javelin, but he apparently got better just in time for the Suicide Squad's next target, Deadshot, to take Javelin out with his own exploding javelin. That didn't take, so he was hit by a car. Nope, the cat still came back, this time to get knocked out by Supergirl. With that history, he's definitely on the short list for one to not make it back. Despite his auspicious codename, Brian Durlin didn't really leave a big dent in the DC world. It's not even clear what he did to earn him a spot on the Suicide Squad. It doesn't matter though, because he almost immediately failed a loyalty test by Amanda Waller and was disappeared immediately. He's only around just long enough to figure out what he's a savant of. A savant is someone who is extensively studied and skilled in a subject, and Durlin's specialty is of course punching and hitting people with fists and solid objects. Also, he's pretty good at bouncing a tennis ball in a small cage. With James Gunn's stalwart Michael Rooker playing the character in the movie, will he have a bigger role than he does in the comics? Gunn has said that no one is safe, so we better keep an eye on him. Blackguard was maybe not cut out for villainy. Joining the 1000, he was given a power suit that allowed him to create a mace and a shield out of pure energy. They then went after Booster Gold, and while it went great for the 1000, it didn't go so great for Blackguard, who was set to be executed with Booster Gold. The time-traveling wannabe hero and the energy mace-wielding wannabe villain were forced to team up to escape, with Blackguard ending up in the Suicide Squad. Blackguard's real name is Richard Hertz. I'll give you a minute with that one. Common nicknames for Richard, rhymes with Rick. Now add the last name, there it is. Maybe that's why he broke bad. He was given a prank phone call name. SNL stalwart Pete Davidson will be taking on the Blackguard role, which is the kind of person you'd think would use Blackguard's real name in a crank call.
Oh, okay.
One thing that Mr. Hertz definitely isn't comfortable with in the trailers is being seated next to John Monroe, better known as Weasel. Not because he's crafty and can't be trusted, not because he had relations with your wife and told you it was your other neighbor, not because he's a comedian from the 80s and 90s known for his stoner persona and his mom owning the Comedy Store. Nope, it's because he's a man-sized anthropomorphic weasel, and that comes with all the regular Weasley stuff. Sharp claws, bitey teeth, kinda quick, 100% crazy looking. He's a bit of a joiner, having been a member of the Secret Society of Supervillains before joining a team themed on animal people called the Menagerie, of course. He also apparently likes to lick things. That's how you know he's evil. Evil people do a lot more licking than non-evil people. That's just science. Is it possible to be such a pacifist that you actually come out the other side as a supervillain? That's the question that Christopher Smith asks in his role as Peacemaker. Smith was a diplomat that went to Washington to bring peace to the world. Turns out that wasn't the place to do it, so he took matters into his own hands. Now, in his role as Peacemaker, he'll shoot as many people as he needs to achieve peace. Naturally, he thinks of himself as a good guy. In fact, he was part of the cadre of superheroes that was sent to Mars to investigate an anomaly that turned out to be Dr. Manhattan from the Watchmen, because the Watchmen eventually entered the regular comic world by being Dr. Manhattan. As you can imagine, the heroes attacking Dr. Manhattan didn't go well, ending with the heroes abandoned on the Red Planet. He eventually made his way back, perhaps hitching a ride on the SG-1, where he joined the Suicide Squad. Peacemaker is a highly trained soldier with highly trained soldier skills like punching and shooting and flying stuff. He's also a skilled diplomat from his previous life, though that might not be his story in the movie, where he's played by Joan C, as diplomacy doesn't seem to be something that interests him. What if you had the combat skills of Peacemaker, but in someone who is not also cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs? If he had any leadership skills, you'd put that guy in charge. So he has to be at least a little bit cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs then. Colonel Rick Flagg is the designated adult and chaperone for Task Force X. He's there to explain to the team who's who and that they're not werewolves, as well as call the shots. That is, until he gets separated from the team, at which point they start winging it because they still have the bombs in their spine, but also a healthy distaste for authority. Rick Flagg is one of the only people to carry over from the previous attempt, along with Amanda Waller and Harley Quinn. Some people live and die by the calendar year. They get all excited on New Year's Eve, New Year, new them. This is the year they'll get it together, they'll unbury that exercise bike, they'll finally make some headway on their novel. This is their year. You know, those people. By June, they've kicked the exercise bike over in frustration, deleted their novel by throwing their computer out the window in a fit of frustration. By December, the year has taken its toll on them and they swear, this new year, this will be different. I'll be reborn. No, you won't. But for Julian Day, that's his literal existence. He dies at the end of every calendar year and is resurrected on the first day of the new year. This bummer of a superpower means that Day takes a bit of a long view about being defeated, since he'll just be revived on January 1st. Every once in a while, someone compiles a list of the dumbest superpowers in comics. Who is on that list is generally a matter of taste and preference, and some of your favorites might even end up on the list, sending you angrily to the comments to tell the person making the list how little they know about comics. But there's one character that everyone agrees has a ridiculous power: Arm Fall Off Boy. This first draft of a name is exactly what it sounds like. His arms fall off and then can be used as melee weapons, because nothing would be more unsettling than having someone take his own arm off and try to beat you up with it. He tried to join the Justice League, but they said ew. He tried a much more clever name of Splitter, but still didn't have that much success. For Suicide Squad, he'll be going by the Detachable Kid, which sounds more like a kid that has a knack for getting lost in department stores.
What the?
Bloodsport is of course known for his powerful kicks, his stunning splits, and his final showdown with the legendary Bolo Yeung. No, wait, that's the movie Bloodsport. Suicide Squad Bloodsport is a master assassin with a daughter who can be used to manipulate him into joining the Suicide Squad. Presumably because the last master assassin that could be manipulated through his daughter was too expensive this time. Bloodsport's claim to fame is managing to not only shoot Superman, but shoot him with a kryptonite bullet. Bloodsport is, for lack of a better term, a super soldier with enhanced physical abilities and extensive training. Movie Bloodsport is obviously not going to share comic book Bloodsport's monochrome preferences when it comes to skin tone, so who knows what else will change. Some powers just sound so dumb, it's no wonder they were captured and why they would be considered expendable. No one is thinking that the Detachable Kid needs a better chance, or that Calendar Man's deal is a curse more than it is a power. But then there's a power where you go, oof, that's disturbing, and in the right location, it could be absolutely devastating. That's the case with Ratcatcher. This is no Orkin Man when he says catcher. What he really means is that he captures their minds, then makes them do things, like whatever he wants things. In a rundown and impacted city like Gotham, a guy who could control the rats would have a seemingly bottomless army of rats to call on, perhaps the most disturbing way to go. Otis Flanagan, the name the Ratcatcher goes by with his friends, if he has any, has the heebie-jeebie inducing power. Believe it or not, he tried to be a good guy with it before going, oh no, this is totally a bad guy power, which eventually lands him in the Suicide Squad. He's also a brilliant chemist because, why not? Some characters get a lot of grief for their mastery of a weapon that has long since gone out of date. But that hero is just so good at using that out-of-date weapon, and they've rigged up a bunch of special ones that they defy the odds and end up on teams with gods and legends. I mean, Black Widow is really just punchy and kicky, and she doesn't get as much grief as Hawkeye, who has a bounty of trick arrowheads and an unnatural ability to use the bow and arrow. But at least it's not a boomerang, right? Boomerangs were developed as far back as 10,000 years ago as a heavy thing to huck at prey. Then, trying to sort out the best arrangement, someone figured out that shaped just right, the boomerang will come back to the thrower. George Harkness from, where else, Australia, took his talent for hucking boomerangs to do crime, primarily against the Flash. Since a guy who can huck trick boomerangs isn't that much of a challenge for a guy who can run faster than time, Captain Boomerang found himself behind bars and joining the Suicide Squad. To top off his boomerang hucking skills, he's also superhumanly strong, all the better to throw his custom boomerangs harder. At this point, what's left to say about Harley Quinn? The character that premiered not in the pages of the comics but in the Batman animated series, the character proved so popular that she made her way to the page as well as the Joker's super problematic girlfriend. How popular is Harley Quinn? This will be her third major role in a DCEU movie. Batman only appeared in 2 so far and a cameo in the last Suicide Squad movie. We all know the story. Harleen Quinzel was the Joker's psychiatrist until she fell head over heels for the maniac, both figuratively and literally, as she went into the same chemical bath that created the clown Prince of Crime. That gave her an immunity to a lot of pathogens, but also took the brilliant Doctor to the dark side, making her a very deadly member of the team, but also very unpredictable. Getting toward the sharp end of the stick, we have the scion of a planetary overlord, Mongal. Her father ruled over Debstem 4 like a proper tyrant. That is, until he brought in a deadly flu virus that wiped out his entire civilization. Just gonna leave that right there and move on. Mongal and her brother went about traveling the universe when they decided to pick a fight with none other than Superman, where they held their own before Krypto the Superdog stepped in. Eventually, she got a throne of her own in Almeric before being taken out by her own brother because that's what royal family members do, or did. Now they mostly wave and have corgis. She's got an impressive alien physique that allowed her, along with her brother, to give Superman a run for his money. Should that move her up on the list? Well, this list starts getting pretty weird. When James Gunn went hunting for villains to fill up his Suicide Squad, he looked into the nooks and crannies of the DC catalog looking for the most ridiculous characters that he could find. For him, the prize winner is Polka Dot Man. As you'd expect, Polka Dot Man is covered in polka dots, but these are no ordinary polka dots. You saw that coming, naturally. His suit keeps the dots inactive, but once they're removed and presumably tossed at someone, they activate into a wide selection of special use dots, like buzzsaws or a giant floating dot he can ride off into the sunset in. For some reason, this whimsical villain chose to arch Batman, even capturing Robin before Batman sent him to Arkham. Polka Dot Man had a sort of ironic end when his head met a manhole cover at terminal speed. You know, it's shaped like a dot. You get it. King Shark has been having a bit of a renaissance of late. He's appeared on the Flash TV show where he even fought Gorilla Grodd. King Shark also appeared in the highly rated Harley Quinn animated series, and now he'll be voiced by Sylvester Stallone in the Suicide Squad. If you think Task Force X is Amanda Waller's worst idea, it's not. That would go to kidnapping the son of the Hawaiian shark god Camus and trying to raise him as her muscle. He eventually got tired of that and made his way to Atlantis to try to become a crime boss. Being the demigod offspring of a shark god and a human woman, and the less you think about that, the better, King Shark has an appropriate raft of demigod powers like massive strength and durability, as well as the ability to both be a pain both on and off land. And of course, the teeth. Can't forget the teeth. One of the most consistent things in comics is that among the various superpowers that people can get, a big brain is among the best. Superman's signature foe isn't someone who can survive a punch from Superman, much less land one, and he's able to outsmart the Man of Steel on a semi-regular basis until punching something hard can finally solve it. And Lex Luthor isn't even the smartest. The Thinker started off smart and then thought, can I get smarter? Through science? And since he was super smart, he figured that out and became crazy smart. So smart, in fact, that he can reasonably predict the outcomes of most things just by understanding and sorting the variables. He's not getting the Amanda Waller treatment, though, so the team has to give him a bunch of rules to follow. What kind of threat could merit such a collection of cuckoo crackery? How about an extraterrestrial conqueror who also happens to be a giant starfish that can control people's minds with either spores or his giant spooky eyeball? The Conqueror, who can also regenerate like a non-conquering starfish and duplicate himself for more nightmare fuel, appears to be at the gooey center of Project Starfish, the very thing that the Suicide Squad is there to stop. It's gonna be a fun time. And can I just take a minute to express my sheer awe that we're getting another Suicide Squad movie where this time our sort of heroes fight a gigantic starfish? I mean, after the first kind of disappointing Suicide Squad movie, who would have thought we'd ever get to this point? Starro is such a fun villain, and I can't wait to see what sort of starfish-esque shenanigans the villain unleashes on the group. Yeah, this is going to be absolutely wild. With a lineup that large, and the fact that there's going to be a lot of characters that don't even make it off the bus, and there's an indication that the reason these barrel scrappings are being used is because her already B team of villains failed, yeah, this is going to be a ton of fun.